Dave Rubin, a classical liberal who left the left, has been on a mission to spread truth and save America. He just came back from Twitter's headquarters where he met with another warrior for truth, Elon Musk. Dave talks about his conversation with Elon, California versus Florida, and how to go on the offense against the woke. I mean, we've known each other for years. I've trapped you. We'll talk about that in a minute. But just give me a quick summary of your background. How did we get here?
How did we get here? Man, well, I was born in June of 1976. I'm an old timer.
Yeah,
I'm a Gen X. Yeah. We're middle-aged. That's weird. I was born in Brooklyn, lived there for a couple of years. Then my parents basically completed the American dream by moving out to the suburbs. We moved out to Long Island. My parents are still in the house that I grew up in for now. They've been there for like 43 years. My dad worked for 30 plus years at the same company in New York City in the garment district, taking the 1 hour each way Long Island Railroad, trip, doing that thing, which I calculated the time for my first book, how much time my dad spent on a train just so that he could have a job so that we could live in the suburbs and all that stuff. And my dad basically over 40 years, 2 hours a day for 5 days a week, spent about 2 years of his life on that train. It's really crazy when you think about that sort of thing. Just retired, and my mom retired, and they're still in that house and grew up there. It was pretty decent, I would say, middle class upbringing. And this is what I try to tell people, we were liberals in the same sense of liberalism, because now when you, as I've done many PragerU videos on, you talk about liberalism and it has nothing to do with actual liberalism. But my family was sort of New York liberals. They were kind of like JFK liberals, and we argued about everything. Jews, it's like you put 5 Jews at a table and you get 18 opinions, and we argued and argued and argued, but then dessert would be served and we were all good. I have no recollection of anyone ever, having a blowout to the point that they had to leave the house or wouldn't come to a holiday or anything like that, which now is very rare in all families because everything's gotten so crazy. But I had a pretty good childhood. And then I went to SUNY Binghamton, which is State University of New York at Binghamton, which my dad said, he was very clear to me when I was trying to figure out colleges. I wanted to go to Syracuse because I wanted to be a sports center anchor. And that's where there's a great broadcasting school there. I think Marv Albert went there and Bob Costas and a bunch of guys. It was something at that time, it was like 25 grand a year, which that now is nothing. I think it's something like 70 a year now. But he said, well, it's 25 grand, I'm not gonna pay that. But a state school in New York, it was like 8 grand a year, pretty much nothing. And it's a very good school. And he said, you choose, I'll pay for this one, but I'm not paying for that one. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm gonna go there. And I was a poli-sci major. Now I did come out as a lefty, so I can't quite tell you how great the education.
Well, you entered as a lefty too, right?
I entered, but the thing is, at the time the left was sane. I mean, this, and everyone watching this knows this. This is before the woke craziness. There may have been some excesses on the left, but it was much more of a live and let live sort of thing than the hysteria that it has become. And I think from that childhood of family kind of arguing things out, like I remember I had aunts and uncles that were conservative and my parents were a little more on the liberal side. But again, it was because politics used to not be consuming everything. Right. So that's what I grew up with. And I think, I didn't even realize this till I wrote the first book, that I think that spirit of like, I was around people that disagreed about things and that's fine. And I was always around that. So I still like that now. It's become much harder, right? Like I know when we hang out off camera, we hang out with a pretty diverse group of people, but it's getting harder and harder to find liberals that will break bread with us, even though we're pretty good.
They may agree with us, but they're afraid to be seen with us,
they're afraid,
right?
I mean, for a fact, when I lived in LA, I had a lot of parties, and we would have parties where we would invite people that were public political people that would come to my house and sit at the table and eat my food and drink all my fancy tequila.
And go like this the entire time and agree on everything.
And then be afraid to take a selfie in my backyard, literally. And that sort of thing, I think, is very much I think that's a metaphor for a lot of what's going on politically in the country right now.
Right, the bravery deficit, as you say.
Yeah.
Did you know you're going to be a personality? Did you know you're going to want to be kind of on screen?
It kind of, it's funny. I went back when we moved this last time from moved a bunch of times now, but from LA to Miami, I was going through some old things that I found, and I found my high school yearbook. And in my high school yearbook, everyone said I was going to host The Tonight Show.
Oh, okay.
Literally every single person that wrote something, we'll see you on The Tonight Show one day. You're going to be on The Tonight Show.
Amazing.
So I wanted to be a sports center anchor. Everyone thought I was going to host The Tonight Show. And I guess this is sort of like a Jordan Peterson kind of thing. Like, I just went for something. You know, like I remember I wanted to host The Tonight Show, and then I was doing stand-up in New York, and I was just going for that. Obviously, I'm not the host of The Tonight Show, but I would never want to be the host of The Tonight Show now. But I am obviously doing something that's relatively close to that. So if you go for something, I think if you give it all you've got and you have like the tiniest bit of talent and you're somewhat decent, you will get something approximate to that. And I think that's pretty much what's happening.
Well, the first time I heard about you was through the Young Turks, right? You went on the Young Turks. Oh, can we just talk about that blip for a minute?
So I moved out to LA and I started doing a show with the Young Turks. It was called The Rubin Report. It was a little more like Hot Topics on The View kind of thing. And I was a lefty for sure. And what I thought at the time, and it's hard for people to remember. So now this is around 2015 or so, 2014. It's hard for people to remember that progressives weren't all completely insane. They were sort of louder and they were yelling a bit more and all that stuff, but they weren't completely insane. But the more I was around it, the more hysterical it got and crazy and everything else. So within a year of being there, I was like, man, I don't know what's going on here. And then I started outside of the studio doing shoots in my house, talking about, is there something going on here with the liberals and we're not acting liberally and we should be for free speech and we should stop calling everybody racist, blah, blah, blah. And then next thing I know, I was actually, I don't even know if I ever told you this, I was doing Larry King's show at Aura TV in Glendale over here. And I was a guest with this guy, you may have heard of him, Dennis Prager. You know this guy, tall guy,
right,
white hair?
Yeah, sounds familiar.
And they brought me on as the liberal and Dennis as the conservative, but we ended up basically agreeing on everything. And I'm still on the Young Turks at this time. And Dennis and I kind of hit it off. And then I think probably a year later, the famous Why I Left the Left video came out.
Yeah.
But that little blip of being there, you know, I think one of the reasons that I'm so effective in sort of taking out these crazy wokesters or the progressive monster, whatever you want to call it, is I was in it. I was in the belly of the beast. I saw how the sausage was made. I saw no arguments. You know, there were many moments where I would be on camera with people and, you know, we'd be doing a 2-hour daily news show that they do. And I'd be looking at these people going, they have no idea what they were talking about. And they would admit it off camera. I mean, it really was. It was like they had no idea what they were talking about, but it was just, could you scream enough? Could you call enough people racist and enough people homophobes and bigots and all of those things? And it works. And it's working less now, fortunately, but it was working at the time. And I think once you realize the power in that, I mean, it's power, right? If you can just get people to shut up because you can say the worst things about them, and you don't really know what you're saying, but it's a tactic that works. It's very empowering.
Well, it's even more than just shut up. It's shut up first and then repeat what we tell you to say.
Oh yeah, and you have to believe it the second they believe it.
Right.
That was another thing that really drove me crazy. It was like, well, first off, a few things happened that really woke me up to it. So one of them was, one day I remember sitting there, I wish I could remember the exact story, but I remember sitting, you know, doing the show live. And I think they were screaming at Mike Huckabee, calling him racist. I think it was either Mike Huckabee or Rick Santorum.
Doesn't matter, they do it to everybody.
One of those, yeah, they do it to everybody. But one of those like Republicans that's not really around anymore in a public sense. Huckabee's a nice guy, he has a TV show, but you know, like not sort of culturally relevant anymore, or politically relevant, let's say. And they were just calling him racist and all of these things. And I remember thinking, sitting there, I was like, I don't think this is adding up. How could it be that everyone we disagree with is racist? Like, and how is it that everyone we disagree with is the worst person in the world? Because I knew these people, like I was friends with them and I was like, they're not that great. And I don't know, maybe I'm not that great either. Like it cannot be that we're so freaking brilliant and we figured it out. These people who couldn't have any, you know, had no order in their own lives, couldn't, you know, fix a tire, you know, or anything, but they somehow knew everything. And everyone who disagreed with them was the worst possible thing. And once I realized that math equation didn't work, then everything started to be very clear to me in how they thought.
So how were you brave enough to just walk away from that? I mean, your entire life was surrounded with that kind of ideology. Yeah. Your career was built around that.
Well, the Why I Left the Left video, so that was a little bit later, but to specifically when I left there, I just could not take it anymore. I mean, I genuinely couldn't take it anymore. I was disgusted going into the office. For the record, I haven't talked about this much. People used to ask me about this a lot, and I never really wanted to talk about it because it's not fun to talk about, like, I mean, note, I haven't mentioned anyone's name, but like, you know, some of these people that were there were invited to my wedding. I mean, I was really friendly with a lot of these people. And now they say the worst possible things about me, which is sort of hilarious. It's like, I just left, guys. That's it. But it's not easy to leave, you know, like I left a salary, I left health insurance, and I just jumped. And it was like, let's see what happens. And then, you know, a few months later, I was doing my show then at Aura TV, which was Larry King's network by coincidence, actually. And then I started talking to Dennis and talking to Larry Elder and talking to Ben Shapiro and and Glenn Beck and some of these other guys, realizing that conservatives were none of the things that they were purported to be, that they were pretty nice. And I would say the thing that really was shocking to me was how conservatives generally were much more generous of spirit, meaning like you could sit with conservatives and do what you are doing right now, which is smiling and listening. And then you could exchange an idea. And it was like, even now, I still have differences with conservatives for sure. I would say less than I had 5 years ago, but it just doesn't matter. Conservatives generally don't think that politics is everything. They have another belief system. But if you believe that politics is everything, you will do some crazy, crazy stuff, hence all the lunacy of the last couple of years. But then when the Why I Left the Left video came out, suddenly I was getting hate like I could not believe. And it was from the people who said that they were the nice people, right? Because that's what progressives do more than anything else. We're nice, we're tolerant, we're diverse, we love everybody. But actually they mean, no, you must bow to us and then we will be nice to you.
And then we'll be tolerant.
Yeah, and not only that, but if we change our mind on something, you better change your mind the same day. You're like, basically you have like a half-hour window that if the progressive groupthink thinks something, you got to get on board immediately, otherwise you're the enemy. And by the way, there's a real white pill in that. They have gone so hysterical, it's so out of control, that the average person now does see it. Now that doesn't mean it's not going to keep coming, because of course it is. But if you take a guy like Elon Musk, who he said he voted for Democrats his entire life. You know, now he's saying he's going to support DeSantis and he recommended people vote for Republicans. It's not because he has every Republican belief. I don't know what he thinks about abortion, but I'm going to guess he's not purely pro-life. But they have basically exonerated everybody. So we have a chance to become the widest tent possible. There's a huge challenge in that, because how do you take the socially liberal people and put them with, say, a Christian conservative, or the libertarians who want to legalize all drugs? And like, there's a lot of work there, but I like that challenge. That seems fun to me.
Well, first I want to give you credit, because you jumped ship early on. Now it's a lot easier, right? There's Joe Rogan, there's Elon Musk, a whole bunch of people, but you were really on the front lines doing that. And I want to take some credit.
I guess I was just stupid enough. I think I was just stupid enough to do it, truly.
And maybe we pushed you over that hill a little bit with the Why I Left the Left video, because I remember you came in and you worked on the script and you were analyzing every word, and you guys were all so careful, and we got you on screen for the 5-minute video, and then we got to title the video Why I Left the Left. And we put the title on that 5-minute video and basically released the video. And you were pretty upset at first with that title.
Well, there were a couple of things. First off, what people may not know about the insider part of how this all works. How long does it take you guys to shoot something, then to put it out? Because it was a couple of months at the time, right?
It was at least 8 weeks.
Right. So, okay, so you have about 8 weeks. I think it might have even, I'm pretty sure we shot it in November or October, and it came out in February. So let's say 2 or 3 months, right? And I shot it, and then I kind of forgot about it. And I don't think that I knew it was coming out that day. And when I woke up, I had a message, a push notification on my phone, Dave Rubin, PragerU, Why I Left the Left. And I had never said that phrase. I never said in the video that has now been seen probably 100 million times across things. I never said I left the left. Like, it was implied, or I was on my way, or I have no problem with it now. But it had never fully been said like that. So I was pissed, and I'm pretty sure I was trying to get you on the phone or somebody on the phone. And we weren't even, we were friendly at the time, but not how we are now. And I was really, really pissed, because I really thought, well, my position in this whole thing, and it was an honest position, my position was, hey, I'm still on the left. I'm trying to save the left. So if I say I left the left, it's going to eliminate a lot of people who would listen to me. What I realized probably within an hour from going into the comments was that all of these people were like, I disagree with Dave on this or that, but he seems like a nice guy. He's on the adventure now. And then that kind of calmed me down because I didn't see a ton of hate in the comments. And not that you should grade anything on comments, but like that was my initial reaction. And then really what happened after that was the video just exploded. And then I started getting invited on more and more of these conservative shows, and nobody cared that I had some differences of opinion. Mm-hmm. And actually they liked it. That's really the better way to say it. It wasn't that they didn't care. They enjoyed it. Yeah. They enjoyed it. And this shows you why generally conservatives are not as hysterical as leftists. Conservatives generally know why they believe what they believe. They've thought about it. It's a little more mature way of looking at the world, which is why they always say, if you're not a liberal in your 20s, you have no heart. And if you're not a conservative in your 30s, you have no brain. And it's like, generally conservatives have thought about the deeper stuff a little bit longer. I think as a general rule, you can say that. So when a conservative sits down with someone that's different, it's like, you can sit there and hear some different things, and it's not going to like blow you away to the core. You're going to be like, maybe you might say you're misguided on this or that. You want higher taxes because you think that helps poor people, but I can work this through with you. Maybe just watch a Thomas Sowell video. We can make this happen, And I think seeing that tolerance, I was like, all right, well, let's just see what happens here. So although, yes, I was annoyed at you and I was like not happy originally, it did kind of put me on the path that I guess led me to here 5 years later.
So I don't need to apologize.
You don't have to apologize. And I think it's 5 years from, you guys are posting this beginning of February. 5 years from this week was the Why I Left the Left video.
Well, your point about...
And it seems like many lifetimes ago.
Your point about us, at least I'll speak on behalf of myself, because I'm not a big fan of tribalism and, what is really a conservative, what is really a liberal.
I speak for all
especially, people are like, oh, you are a conservative, you must think all this. And I actually think that there's a lot of diversity of thought even here within PragerU, right? Yeah. Dennis and I don't agree on everything. Amala's on one side of things, CJ and Aldo are on another side, and Will Witt, and I actually love that. I actually think that if you spend time with people who don't necessarily agree with you on everything, you'll expand your intellectual boundaries, you'll learn something new. And so when we spent time together, especially in the beginning, I thought it was fascinating because you claimed that you were on the left and I claimed that I'm on the right, and actually we agree on a lot of things. And I think it really it helped us. It helped us grow intellectually, and it built our friendship. And I wish there was more of that, around America. And so I'm glad that you're ultimately okay with the title. And I think that ultimately, if more people like you are willing to sit down and have conversations with us and not be afraid of having some label slapped on them because they sat down with a conservative, America will be in a better place.
Right. The inherent problem with that, unfortunately, is that the more that I started talking to some of the people that we mentioned here, Larry Elder and Dennis and Glenn and Ben Shapiro and all that, the more I started doing that, even though it wasn't necessarily changing my opinion in real time, it was literally just me at the beginning, it was me interviewing these people. So I was just chatting with them. The more I did that, the hysterical lefties, they don't even want you sitting with people. It's not, so they don't want you seen with them. And then what happens is, because liberals tend to be more fearful, they like the idea of everyone liking them. And that definitely has something deep to do with this idea of not knowing why you think what you think. If you don't know exactly why you think something, you want to be liked more. That's why they always are changing what they believe, and they always like whatever happens on any given day. If something changes, they change immediately. So that then closed a certain door for me, because now the conservatives were being friendly and nice and open and all of those things. And also I was breaking bread with them for the first time off camera too. And that really changed things. But then the liberals or the lefties were just, now I was tainted. So it became much harder, even as an interviewer. I don't know how many thousands of interviews I've ever done. I have treated every guest the exact same way, regardless of political stripe or religion, belief, skin color, it doesn't matter. I've treated everyone the same way, but suddenly the door for those people, they closed it. It wasn't me that closed it. Even right this moment still, like my opinions on everything are very public. I would gladly sit with whoever it might be. Like now I've been able to sit with a guy like Bill Maher, but he's hopefully on his way and I'm going to keep pushing him. But I would sit with the wokiest wokester in Woketown.
Right.
But they're not returning the calls.
They're afraid to be labeled because they sat down with somebody who supposedly is, I don't know, contagious. Maybe we are contagious. Maybe our ideas are so good. Ideas of freedom hopefully are contagious.
Right.
And,
well, I think they're contagious I do think good ideas are contagious. Bad ideas are contagious too. Theirs are a little more, certainly more nefarious, and theirs are a little more subtle into the system because they do it under the guise of being good.
Right.
And also because of that, I would say cult-like nature of it, it gets young people really easily, and it's a lot harder. If you're looking at a 15-year-old kid, telling a 15-year-old kid that everyone before you is evil and everything is so messed up, and you seemingly have no autonomy in this thing, and you're just floating around, you could get kids to do all sorts of crazy things, perhaps burn down cities for no reason.
Right.
But to say to somebody, you actually have some autonomy over your life, you have some choice. One of the things that Jordan Peterson says that I love, and I toured with him for a year and a half, so I got to hear a lot of stuff over and over and really think through a lot of these things. And after shows, we'd continue. I always felt like I got the post-game show.
How did you come to work with Jordan Peterson?
It was literally, I did a show in my house. My studio was in Sherman Oaks, and it was in my garage. And one day I was doing a show with him and Ben Shapiro, so it was the three of us. And that night, Jordan was doing his first ever studio show. He was doing his first ever theater show. It was here at the Orpheum, downtown LA. And kind of as a joke, as he was walking out the door, and I was sort of joking about it. I was like, hey, if you want me to, it was at the beginning of Jordan. So he wasn't sure if a theater show was going to work or what it was going to be like, what he was going to do. And kind of as a joke, I was like, hey, if you want me to come and I'll make a couple lobster jokes before and see what happens. And he was like, yeah, why don't you? And I went and I told about, 7 minutes of silly jokes about Jordan, basically. And the crowd loved it, and the agents were there, and they were like, well, if this goes well tonight, we're going to put him on tour. You want to join us? And then a year and a half later, we did 120 shows in,
amazing,
I think 22 countries, something like that. And it was a dream. It was an absolute dream.
Amazing. Really, I really think that there are going to be a few people who history books will be written about, and you are on the front line of that, right? Jordan.
Oh, I was saying to Jordan. Maybe, okay.
Whatever, no, but you and the work that you were doing with Jordan, and going on Rogan all these times, and you just came back from San Francisco. I want to hear a little bit what you did over there with Elon Musk and Twitter, and so you can. But I'm just so proud of you. It's so incredible. I know that it was so difficult for you to walk away from your previous life, and I'm sure there was a lot of fear in doing that. But if you just look back, I'd assume you have no regret.
No, I have no regrets because my life is good now, but it cost a lot. When I was getting real hate from that "Why I Left the Left" video, I developed alopecia areata, which is I lost huge chunks of my hair, like crazy. And I think in the second. So You Think You're Tolerant, I think was the second one that I did. Yeah. I was using spray-on hair, literally. And that's stress-related. I went to I had every freaking test known to man, and they could only chalk it up to stress. Because for the first time in my life, I was getting hate, but I wasn't saying anything hateful, and I couldn't really put those two pieces together. And I was getting hate from the people that say they're the good guys. So it made no sense to me. Now it makes a lot of sense for some of the reasons we've discussed here. But it came with the cost, but then it also came with great benefit. And I just think that I really believe this, it's sort of what I said before, but if whatever you want to do, if you go for it and do the best you can, you may not get exactly that, but you'll get something close enough. And then the other things in your life will fall into place. So it's very weird that that I'm someone that I toured with Jordan, I was with Elon 2 days ago, that I'm in that, I don't know, anyone could do it, I think. I really think that.
Well, at least they need a good amount of bravery in them. Can you tell me a little bit about what...
bravery or stupidity? I'm not sure. It's bravery or just naivete, maybe something like that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit what happened with Elon Musk and at Twitter? What did you see there? What did you do there?
It was wild. Well, so basically what happened was a couple weeks ago, everyone is seeing since Elon got Twitter that it got very, very good. It felt like old Twitter where the engagement was right. You could see people that you forget about. On Twitter, you go on your timeline, and if somebody doesn't show up, for 3 months, you forget that they exist. So there were all sorts of, ghosts in the machine. Nobody could figure out what was going on there. Anyway, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I got looped in with some engineers over there. And they've been asking me my frustrations and what's going on and what do I see happening. And because all the conservatives, I don't even like the word conservative in this sense, but all the non-woke people have been complaining a lot that something's wrong with Twitter, that it got really good for the first few weeks under Elon, and then it seems like it just completely dropped off. So I was working with them for 2 or 3 weeks, going into my account, trying to figure out things, comparing things. And then literally it was 2 days ago now, I got a text saying, can you be in San Francisco like now? And I called you, I called everyone I know. I'm like, somebody's got to find me a plane, get me something. I got to get there now. Ended up on literally the last row in the middle seat, American Airlines, seat 32E. Horrible flight, seat wouldn't fit back.
The things you're doing for our country.
I was like, all right, I'm gonna do it for Elon. I didn't know the seat wasn't gonna work. Anyway, I got to the Twitter offices at about 12:15 a.m. He was still there. It's a really weird place there.
He's just like sleeping there, right?
He's the guy, I think all day long he was doing, it was like the Tesla quarterly earning thing. He was testifying in a trial. Like the guy did not need this. He is running several other companies. And he took he overpaid for a thing that is not making a dime. Like he has created problems for himself because he believes in this thing. That's what became very obvious to me. But anyway, on the first night that I got there, we meet briefly. We chat for, I don't know, maybe like 3 minutes. And now it's like 12:30 a.m. It was very obvious that he had had an extremely long day. And he says to me, he said, I'm really, really tired and I could use a good night's sleep, but if you need something right now, I'll stay. And I was like, what? Like, how crazy is that? This is the richest guy in the world, probably the busiest guy, the guy that has the weight of the world on his shoulders because he chose it. And he's offering to stay with me if I have a problem with my Twitter. You know what I mean? Yes, I'd like more likes, please. Can you do something about that? Like crazy, right? And I was like, of course, I was like, no, we'll do it tomorrow. Anyway, then the next day comes, he has crazy meetings all day long. They keep delaying my thing. Then I didn't get back there till about 11 p.m. He's still in the office. Again, he was there early that morning. And then we had a couple hours and we talked about all of the problems. What I can tell you is exactly what I said in this long Twitter thread. We chatted about all of this stuff and I thought the coolest part was I said to him at the end, do you mind if I repeat any of this? And he said, as long as it's true. And he did not pause. It was that smooth, like as long as it's true. And then I sat with all the engineers, we went into all this stuff and we found they are finding crazy things. It's not just ghosts in the machine that they can't figure out. It's probably old programmers that put some really bad stuff in there related to shadow bans and tags. There are all sorts of my account. They found all sorts of secret tags on there, not safe for work. So as if my account had been tagged as if it was porn and not safe for advertisers and misinformation.
So you were able to go into the back end of your account and see if it was tagged.
Yeah. So there are labels that are very obvious. They can go in and look at your account and, they could very clearly label something, not safe for work or not safe for advertisers. That's the obvious version.
And yours was tagged.
Mine was tagged with that. But for the first time when they went into my account, they found all of the secret stuff that's basically under the hood. And that is what now they're finding on a whole bunch of other people's accounts. And that's just the beginning of it. And as he said to me, this thing is like a Jenga. He's like, every time we pull a piece, we are about to destroy the whole freaking thing. He said I could say it, so I'll say it. They may want to just blow up the whole thing and rebuild it because, code, you're not a coder either, am I? So the engineers that are watching this probably won't be.
Yeah, it's all woven in.
Yeah, well, it's like a layer cake. And once you keep digging, you're finding all sorts of things. None of it makes sense. And, there's a lot of logic in there. If this, then this. And when you change one thing, you've now changed 20 other things. So they go to change one thing and then suddenly Twitter Spaces doesn't work or they change something else and now the Android app doesn't work. So he has a tremendous amount of work to do. But without getting into the nitty gritty of that, what I left there with was this is a seriously good man who does not need this problem. He's funny as hell also. He laughs a ton. He was in nonstop meetings. Everyone's bringing, look at my phone, look at my problem here, all of this stuff. And just think about it this way. For all the years that we've all been on Twitter, there was nobody to talk to. Literally nobody. Not the CEO. Yeah, you couldn't get the CEO, but you could not get the lowest level employee there. Now the CEO has come in, fired half the people, the thing's still working, and he is trying to make it better. And all he's trying to do is, in terms of the political part of it, is make it even. That's it. Who's that upsetting? It's upsetting the lefties. Right? Because an even playing field is not good for their ideas. So there are all sorts of problems there. And I think what I did, I didn't know what I was going for exactly. But
Why
I think
did he want you to come?
Well, I think he wanted to talk to me about what he saw on my account because they literally were seeing these things for the first time. They had never done a deep dive on someone's account where they unfurled some of this craziness. So I think it was that, but there was no intention. It wasn't like I was going in and then I was going to report back as I ended up doing. That's why I said to him in the meeting, do you mind if I talk about this stuff? I didn't know if I was walking out the door being like, okay, well, I have some knowledge and that'll be that. But then he said that truth thing and I was like, all right, let's see. And I think what's happened from that is that it's giving everybody a little bit of breathing room. And what I mean by everybody, he now has breathing room because I tweeted out some information basically saying, everybody calm down. Like everyone's upset. They want things to be fixed immediately.
Right.
But it's giving him breathing room because now they really feel that he is working on it. And I swear to you that he is. I think it's giving, let's say, people somewhat on our side politically a little breathing room because they're looking at what I said and it's like, all right, the guy's working. And then it's giving the fans who are not seeing somebody's tweets, it's giving them a little bit breathing room. And so I think this is going to seriously take time. But one other thing on that, the guy they have these crazy offices there, right? Like massive, massive offices. There were 7,500 people that work there. It's a ghost town now. Because nobody in San Francisco wants to go back. Well, San Francisco is a zombie apocalypse. I mean, we can talk about that too. I mean, the amount
we should show the video of what you took.
Yeah. The
horrific.
It is like a zombie movie. Truly, you see these people walking in hordes. They are all drugged. And the people that are not drugged there or homeless or, open wounds, like the worst stuff you can imagine, everyone else is scared. That's what I noticed. Everyone looked scared. I mean it like going into Starbucks.
Scared of what?
There's just a sense of being attacked, mugged. There's no joy there because everyone sees this is urban decay at its highest possible levels. And of course, this comes from literally the leftiest city in the United States.
Do you think people are waking up? I mean, we keep talking about this, right? It's been like probably 3 years every time I see you. Or like, are more people waking up? Or are we living in a bubble? And then elections happen and people keep voting for dumb things, or we see more of the, woke industrial complex and everywhere. And so it's like, on the one hand, I feel like people are waking up. We're seeing more of the mama bears that, follow PragerU and the parents. And, definitely PragerU has had unbelievable growth. And so I'm thinking people are waking up. And then I'm looking at some of the results on the other side and I'm like, wait, am I living in a bubble?
Yeah, the thing is, well, first, to answer your question clearly, yes, people are waking up. But you have to separate that a little bit from what election results are. Because waking up to what is wrong with society and what the good ideas are, that doesn't always immediately connect to who you have to vote for, unfortunately. And also the Republican Party, as I always say on my show, you don't have to be a Republican, but you cannot be a Democrat. It's not like the Republicans are that great. They're certainly better than the Democrats, and I hope they get better. But getting people to wake up politically and then connect that to, I better really vote differently or move or something else, that's a second step. But in terms of the first step of like waking up truly, yes, there are more red-pilled people now. Look at the results in Florida. I can't do an interview without talking about Florida, obviously. All DeSantis really did was say no more of this nonsense. Actually, when DeSantis was at the PragerU Gala last year that I emceed, one of the things that I thought was most interesting was that Alan here from PragerU said to me after, he said, I've never heard him speak in person. He said, all he said was common sense.
Right.
That was it. The secret is not that great, actually, with DeSantis. It's like he's fighting the right fights. We're going to get the woke stuff out of schools. You can't tell boys that they're girls, blah, blah, blah. We're going to have low taxes. We're going to actually fund law enforcement. It's basic stuff that actually pretty much every Democrat believed in 1986, and he's doing it right. And then what happens is you end up winning by a landslide. So in some cases where it's really done right, you see it work in terms of the results of an election. I think the broader Republican Party has a lot of problems and they have to figure out the direction. And I think the brand in some ways is so toxic to young people that they can't make that final move. So as bad as the Democrats are, it's like, if they can just kind of throw out another Joe Biden, they think, all right, he's inept and whatever, but he's not truly evil. I would argue that perhaps he is, but or just completely inept, which could be a version of evil. But I think that's the problem, is that an awful lot of people are waking up. You're right. The parents, look what happened in Virginia with Youngkin. It's because parents started revolting, right? And now school choice is coming to Arkansas. It's coming to Iowa. Like there's so many good things happening. But the machine and the woke monster is never going to stop. That's what I think people really have to understand. It is a virus and a virus is very easy to catch and very hard to get rid of. And it always, I wrote this in, I think it was in my second book. I can't remember which book it was. Do you remember the scene in the original Alien movie? Sigourney Weaver, Alien, I think it's 1977. They're on the ship and the alien is now killing everybody, right? And everyone's being killed. There's like 3 or 4 people left. And the doctor on the ship, who you later find out is an android actually, he likes the alien. And Sigourney can't figure out why. And he's like, well, the alien's remorseless. The alien's accomplishing what it wants to accomplish. It's doing its mission.
It's focused.
It's focused and doing. So he doesn't like what it's, well, he turns out to kind of like it because for a different reason, but whether we like this thing or not, you have to give the devil his due. This thing has rampaged through our institutions. No one in their right mind would have thought that this kind of destruction would have happened. No one would think 7 years ago that a guy like me would have wanted to leave Los Angeles and leave California to go live in Florida.
Right, it was your dream to move to LA.
And I loved it the first 6 years here. I woke up every day. It's sunshine every day here, you know? A lot of sun in Florida too, by the way. It is the Sunshine State. Did you know that?
I know you love Florida.
but that's how much things have changed. And the point of the alien story is you have to give them credit for doing it. You can't just run around saying the woke are idiots and they're morons and whatever. It's like, man,
they're not. They're focused.
Yeah. And you may say, and yes, the foot soldiers, the Antifa people, and like the average person and AOC, yes, they may not be the brightest people, but whatever the driving force behind it is focused and is doing damage. So you have to acknowledge that. And I would say to the political part of like, is the wake up going to translate to anything? I think we have a huge problem in the United States that the states are just going to continue going in their separate way. And we are going to have a serious national conversation about what does it mean to be united then? Because we could just be the states of America, but what are we united about? That's becoming very unclear to me. Florida and California are on completely divergent paths.
It's like the divided states of America.
You guys are on the path to communism here. You really are. I hate to say you guys, because I've been trying to get everyone in this room to move to Florida, right? It's hard to take a building, right?
You know I'm going to respond.
Yeah.
You know I'm going to respond.
And it's a worthy fight, by the way. It's a worthy fight.
We got to fight. I mean, you talk about the alien and how relentless it is. You know, I've said this, PragerU, we've been working on PragerU for 11 years.
Yeah.
And I've always said we have to go on the offense.
Yes.
You know, I'm hearing you talk about that now as well. We started PragerU because we have to go on the offense. We can't keep running away. As long as we run away, they're going to come running after us. They've already made it into Miami. Miami is, you know, it's obviously leaning more conservative now.
I mean, it went red for the first time in a long
politically,
time.
But look at the schools. A lot of the schools are teaching CRT, and obviously you have a great governor right now.
Miami I mean, it's illegal to teach it now.
Now it is, but you know, 3 years ago it was already making it in the schools. I mean, we know.
But yes,
it's making it everywhere. Right. You have to stop it. You have to fight it.
Love Florida.
I love Florida. I love Florida. I love Nashville.
Yeah. But I think what you're saying to me is Florida's better than it was 3 years ago.
It is better, but I also love America. And I realize that as long as conservatives, here's my point, as long as conservatives continue to retreat, the woke left is so aggressive. They are so focused that they're going to come chasing after us everywhere we go.
Yeah.
And we have to learn how to not just run away. We have to learn how to fight back and be on the offensive. And so you look at the education system in America, right? I've been an educator for 20 years. And so I've seen how basically conservatives would say, oh, well, academia is on the left. What are you going to do? Okay, you know, raise your hands. Give up. You come from Hollywood, right? What did conservatives do when it comes to Hollywood? Ran away from Hollywood. We keep running away. We keep forfeiting because fighting is freaking damn hard.
Yeah.
And it's not in our nature to fight, but it is time that we go on the offense. Like you say, we gotta fight.
So first off, let me say that I can tell everyone watching this that Marissa is very consistent in her public and private view, because when I told you I was moving, that's the exact lecture you gave me. I remember exactly where we were standing on my roof, and you gave me this long lecture of why we have to stay and fight. So that's important to know, because so many people have a public position and a private position. That's one thing. I'm not saying you're wrong about those things, and they will continue. I fully accept that if every sane, non-woke person left California and left New York, and we fortified Florida, and we fortified Texas and Tennessee, they will not stop, because what they want is submission. You could give them whatever, you could give them the dystopia that they want in California, And unfortunately, what will happen is because of the high taxes and then pushing out all of the people that generate wealth and then all of the bad ideas, they're still going to come. So I fully accept that. I fully grant you that the war will still continue, right? The difference is they're simply, if you were to look at a place like California, there aren't the numbers to stop this thing. There aren't the numbers to stop it. San Francisco went from Gavin Newsom, who is the leftiest, crazy, destroyed the city, and now they have another one of those people. You know what's going on right here. So what we're really talking about is a tactical thing. And yes, are there ways to have pockets of places that are kind of okay in those things? But you could also look at something like New York. You know, New York, something really fascinating happened. New York lost during COVID to now something like 500,000 people. It's probably a little bit more, actually. Most of them went to Florida, some went to Texas, but they all go to red states, right? No. I
think they're all in Boca.
They're pretty much, well. Everyone from Long Island is in Boca for sure. But they make these massive migration things. But do you know how many people, how many votes Lee Zeldin lost by?
No.
About 400,000. So if you think about it, about 500,000 roughly. Now, some of them are kids, obviously, and can't vote. And you can't say that all of them were going to vote Republican. But the point is, the red states are getting redder because these people are coming down to Florida and voting the right way. And that then causes the blue states to get bluer. So whether you like the strategy or not, and I respect it, trust me, I'm a fighter. I campaigned with Larry Elder for the recall. I got audited by the state 3 days later, which was also the day I put my house for sale. So that's a strategy thing, and it's worth discussing, and everyone's going to have a little bit of a different sort of idea on that. But to me, the entropy of this, it's already happened. It's already happened, and we have to figure out what does that mean. Because the more that the red states flourish, the more they will be jealous. Florida doesn't want anything from California. That really is true. There is no one in Florida wandering around like, what can we get from the Californians? There's an awful lot that the Californians, meaning the California political machine, whether it's money or resources or knowledge. I mean, look, Florida gets hit with the craziest once-in-a-100-year
or a good vacation
storm.
During the lockdown.
AOC down in Miami Beach with her husband with those ridiculous flip-flops and socks, in the middle of the height of the whole thing. But, look at Florida. We have this crazy Hurricane Ian, basically a Category 5 storm that stopped right on the coast, destroyed a part of the state that is very precious to me and my family. And there's devastation there right now. But we rebuilt the bridge in 2 weeks. California, done.
It would have taken 10 years.
It would be a prisoner's island at this point. So they are going to want the knowledge and the resources and all of those things. I just don't know what the answer to that is at the level other than you got to take care of your family, you got to take care of your community and your state. You got to do it this way, as opposed to looking to the federal government to magically make us all do the right thing, because it ain't.
Well, places like California and New York will push for a bigger federal government so that they can go and grab out of Florida. But the one thing I'll give to you is that even though you moved to Florida, you're not just sticking your head in the ground, right? You're still fighting. And I think that is
I'm fighting more than ever, and I love it now.
That's a big piece of it, right? It's like, if you're leaving California, that's fine. Leave California. But don't think that the fight is over. Don't think that you can just keep, living your life and running away from things and not being part of the solution and not trying to fix things in whatever way. And I think that's what we mean by going on the offense, right?
Well, I can tell you that it is much more fun to fight for something than against something. That doesn't mean it's more worthwhile. It is very worthwhile to fight against something that's evil. But being in Florida for the last year and doing a lot of events with DeSantis and being part of a place that you can feel like, what Florida feels like, especially as when I come back to Cali now, and really having left San Francisco, Florida feels like it's 30 years in the future. Like America got past all of the craziness, and this is what it's...
I wish.
Yeah, but that's what it feels like. I live in Miami. Miami is like the most diverse not in the way they like diverse. It's the most diverse place in terms of languages and the politics is not that important there because the state is sane. So people aren't wandering around in a constant state of political stupefaction or something. So that's what we have to fortify. We have to fortify that. And I can tell you at a human level, it is much more fun fighting for something. So when you say I went there and I continued to fight, well, I guess I'm one of the people that is waving that alligator flag now and saying, guys, and this is what I do on my show virtually every day. I end with something about Florida because we can talk about all the bad news every day and the federal government's out of control and all the craziness and the spending and all that stuff. But you need people to see that there are places where things are done right. And then you got to blueprint that and export it throughout the country. my own opinion is it cannot fix Cali, but it might fix a place that could be somewhat borderline. And that's
And be
really
a good
the hope.
example at the very least, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the idea, right? Like if you can get a couple people, because at some point people go, man, they've closed my business. They didn't let me to go to grandma's funeral. They masked my kids. My kids now have slow speech, like the litany of things. And it's like, and then these people got reelected. Gavin Newsom got reelected. Gretchen Whitmer got reelected.
Crazy. It's crazy.
So it's literally, it's thank you, sir, may I have another?
Yeah.
We're going to spank you. Can I have another, please? And another and another. So they will do it again. And I think maybe the silver lining to all of this is when they come and try to do it again, and they will, whether it's climate lockdowns, COVID-2, monkeypox, whatever they do, maybe enough people will be like, no. We know what you were eating at French Laundry, Gavin. We are not doing this again. Oddly, he didn't close his own winery. Did you know that? He closed all the other wineries in the area. Somehow his winery.
Apparently there's no COVID
bizarre.
over there.
No,
Incredible.
That was, he had like the COVID fence or something.
What are you doing these days in Florida? So you have your show. Are you writing a book? Are you writing another book?
I've sketched out like the
You have
beginnings.
locals, you sold locals. Just update me because you have a million things going on at every point in time.
So I do my daily show. So I'm live at 11 o'clock every day. I love my show. We're crushing it right now. Our numbers, literally every week, we break every record we've ever had. I think I've hit a nice stride in that. And I think it's a culmination of a lot of the things that we've talked about here. And also, everyone's screaming about politics all the time. And there's this scowl on their face and they're mean about it. Like I try to be funnier and sillier and not take myself that seriously. And I think I've just struck something that is nice. One thing you'll find interesting, because I know you're a numbers person, is that my audience for my daily show skews a little bit older and a little bit more female, which is interesting because politics is usually a young male, very young male dominated thing. I love the fact that my audience is a little bit different. Like for whatever reason that perhaps women that are a little bit older, so a lot in their like 40s and 50s.
40-year-old women are not older.
No, well, they're older than what the usual.
They're just older than women in their 30s.
Yes, with all due respect. It's all relative. But they're older than the average political person watching a video on YouTube or Rumble or elsewhere. So I love the fact that I've like hit this stride with a group of people that are not really
they're generally not part of that group.
So I absolutely love that. I toured with this book, which I loved. I loved getting back out on the road and doing all that. I created Locals in the middle of this because, 5 years ago now, because I was like, big tech is evil. We better do something. We eventually merged with Rumble, and I really believe we're building the alternative pipes now alongside
Rumble is doing amazing, right?
Rumble's absolutely blowing up.
Can you update me on that a little?
I mean,
how's it doing?
There's a couple interesting things about Rumble because people think Rumble is just a YouTube alternative, meaning it's just go to rumble.com, find video.
Yeah.
Rumble has incredible infrastructure, cloud infrastructure, which without getting too into the nitty gritty, when Parler was blown up after January 6th and they had to find somebody to be the scapegoat, even though there was more coordination for the January 6th people on Facebook than there were on Parler, Parler was the new guy in the ecosystem and they had 23 million active users. So Amazon, which runs Amazon AWS, Amazon Web Services, that's the cloud that basically runs the internet. It's the underbelly of the internet. They just pulled the plug and blew up the entire thing. So Rumble is building now and has already, I mean, we have much of it, the parallel infrastructure of the internet. So it's not just go here for video. It's we are going to make sure that PragerU is not going to be blown out of the water just because they say something that the machine doesn't like. So Rumble's going really well. I love doing my daily show. I'm sort of sketching out this book. I also have 2 kids now, which is
not nothing.
Not nothing. Thank you. That's pretty much exactly what it is. It's not nothing. It's wonderful. It's amazing. It's exhausting. It's crazy. It's all of this stuff. And I really want to fight for Florida. I mean, that's what I feel more than anything else, actually. That's what I probably should have said first. I love this state. For that state, I am so appreciative to be there. That's what I feel more than anything else. Like when I'm out there and I'm talking to my landscaper, and who I love, and we just had him at our holiday party. I'm just like, I love the people here. I'm so appreciative that, Florida Man, the idea of Florida Man was this guy with a cigar and he's wrestling an alligator, pulling a dog out on the golf course in the water, and he's crazy and all of this stuff. And, the meme about Florida Man, that like, there's just all the crazy stories about what Florida Man does. But Florida Man knew something along the way, knew something about freedom. So I am so appreciative. And I do it at every talk that I do in Florida. Like, where are the OG Floridians? I want to give you guys credit because you guys created a refuge so that the rest of us could come to. And I'm very appreciative about that. It's funny also because I live in the suburbs of Miami, and right when we moved there, there's this influx of all of these people, New Yorkers and Cali people. And we're walking our dog, and the neighbors just, they know there's new people there, and they say hi, and they go, well, where are you from? And we're from LA, and they freak. There's this look. They don't do it, but they kind of
don't vote for what you fled.
So right, exactly. So, well, that's what they're thinking, right? Oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
But so what I started to do, I kid you not, I would keep in my recent pictures on my phone, I'd keep a picture of me and DeSantis. And every time I would say it, I'd go, but don't worry, I'm with this guy. And then they give you this huge smile, welcome aboard. And by the way, there's American flags everywhere. I haven't seen one since I've been here in LA, an American flag anywhere.
People hide them.
Yeah. So the spirit there, I love being part of that spirit. And I want the people that were the OGs to get the credit. Like, you guys did it right. And if it wasn't for Florida, this whole country would, really, where would we be right now?
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine, actually.
Okay, I know you love talking about Florida, but can we change
the
subject?
Can we talk about Florida?
Can we change the subject for 1 minute?
Oh,
Just
so
1
good.
minute.
Yes, okay.
Okay, so there's something that's been weighing on me.
Yes.
And it has to do with some of this conflict that's happening among some of our friends.
Yes.
And it's, if you call it Big Con or the man, I guess, ironically, places like PragerU, me, I guess, I'm the man now.
You're the man?
I'm the man.
You're the man?
I'm the man.
A moment ago, you were a woman of a certain age. Now you're the man.
Identify as a woman. But in all seriousness, so there's a conversation right now happening in the movement which is about either you go as an independent, nobody controls you, nobody tells you what to say. We heard about the, Steven Crowder versus Daily Wire conflict. And I wanted your take on that, because I know that you're independent.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you're also kind of the man in that you have a business and you have a company and you're invested in Rumble, and there are contracts over there. And I think, for the audience, it might be a little bit of a confusing conversation that is happening.
Yeah.
And what actually worries me the most is that people are speaking in terms that I think really can become very confusing. And one of the things that PragerU has been doing, and we're so passionate about, is building these personalities, giving people an opportunity where you may have never heard about these people, or maybe we would have never discovered, like the Will Witts or the Amalas or the new folks that we're bringing on. And I don't think that we're the man by giving these folks contracts.
All right, so let me
and so let's talk a little bit about that. It's just been really weighing on me.
Yeah, so first off, I can be very clear about one thing. PragerU is not the man, right? Like, you are an organization, you have to raise money, you have to build a product and hire these good people to put out good content. But you are not, everything you guys have designed here is against the man. So it's a very simplistic way to be like, okay, the Daily Wire, even though you guys are a nonprofit, they're a for-profit, but the idea that they're the man, that they decided to go against all the cultural norms, that somehow you could still be the man, is a little ridiculous. Let me preface all this by saying, I don't want to get into the personality part, because I'm friends with all these people. That was
so are we,
right. So that was the disappointing part of this. We could just get that out of the way. Like, to just watch people that I think are friends or are within whatever acceptable parameter, like agreement on what the future is supposed to look like. Like, we shouldn't be doing that sort of mutually assured destruction. So that's kind of disappointing on that level. But in terms of the man and independence and all that, I mean, Rumble and Locals, we have built this to free as many people as possible. It does not matter what your political leanings are. We want you on Rumble to go ahead and put out whatever you want. The Young Turks, or the craziest lefty, if there must be a crazier lefty organization than them, they are welcome on Rumble. As long as you're not breaking the laws of the United States, you are welcome to put your content there, and we will help you monetize it, and we'll help you build a subscription network, which is what I started with Locals, and you're good to go. Now, of course, we still have contracts with people. It's a business. We're not pretending it's not a business, but that's what we want to do. That's what I felt. I guess, what you talked about a little bit about my adventure before, I just like the idea of independence. I really did. I like it as a individual. I like it as a nation should be independent, and that's what I've really helped build there. And that's what we want people to do. That being said, there are reasons to be part of a network. The Daily Wire can look at Jordan alone. Jordan was doing his thing solo. He now does the Daily Wire stuff. His stuff is shot beautifully. It's gorgeous. The content is amazing. He's loving it over there. I mean, I was just with him last week. He's loving it. So there are reasons to be part of a network. They have access to resources and finances that I don't have as an independent creator, but I have complete freedom and I can go on all the networks all the time. You know, a lot of these guys, they get on one network and then you're on Daily Wire, you can't be on Fox, you're on The Blaze, you can't do Newsmax. I go everywhere and I chat with everybody. And so I can make those decisions for myself. But at the same time, I had to become a businessman out of this, which I certainly didn't intend. And then there were times, you know, the couple years that we were raising funds for locals, I was spending 70% of my day trying to do a startup. I had no idea what I was doing and making calls all day long and trying to raise funds. It's not the most fun thing. You have to repeat yourself constantly.
Right. And that wasn't in your personality business. That was a tech business that you were building.
It was a tech business. And I honestly, I think in retrospect, although it worked out, I have no idea, like, would I have done it had I known how many hours of like just the repetition more than anything else. And you know, it's funny, one thing that I learned about donors in general is the people who are like the real people that you want to get, you barely have to explain anything to them. You kind of just like, listen, this is what I'm doing. I think it's good. Like, if you think I'm decent and you got some cash, let's roll. And they do it. The people that string you, well, I have to have 7 other meetings and blah, 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 they're the ones that always fail you in the end. That's just like a little sidebar on that. But we created something to free people. There are absolutely reasons for networks, but the Daily Wire is not the man.
Right.
PragerU is not the man. The man is the giant corporate machine that lies about everything. The man is the New York Times. The man is CNN and MSNBC and all of those letters. That is the man.
Right.
The man is not, even if it's a successful business, just because you became successful or just because you created something of value, it doesn't mean you're the man. The Daily Wire still has to profit somehow. Now, without, again, getting too into all the nitty-gritty of it, I wish, or I suppose what would have maybe been a better use of time on all of this would have been for Crowder to counter in a private way and then work it out. And if you can't get there, look, in the last year, you know, I left The Blaze because I'm doing everything with Rumble, but I had great negotiations with them. I love Glenn, I love Tyler, all the guys that you know, I love them all. We had tough negotiations, and then you put it down and you go, okay, we couldn't work it out. Obviously, I wanted to be where I had created something, so that's the direction I went. But I negotiated with the Daily Wire as well. I never said that publicly because it was like, let's just see what's going on here. I've negotiated with Fox. I've negotiated with everybody. It's business. And you have to separate business from personal and And that's all I've got to say about
that. I mean, I think separating it from the Crowder Daily Wire situation is really the conversation about, you know, do conservatives need to be independent when they're creating their content, or is being part of a network something of a certain value? Which I could see how it could go both ways. For certain people, they can be both a personality and run a business. And certain people really just want the freedom of just being the personality. I mean, actually running a business is not a freeing thing. Maybe on a macro level, you think that you're free, but on a micro level, it's eating at you every day, right? You're doing management, you're doing, I mean, it's just negotiations, legal, all of that stuff is compiled into the thing that you need to do every single day.
You got to make sure there's toilet paper in the bathroom.
You got to pay salaries. You got to order the tea. You got to all that stuff.
Marissa, the best example I can give you of this is Glenn Beck. You know, when Glenn obviously was doing his radio thing, and then he was on Fox and he was on CNBC, and he was working through the system, doing all this great stuff. And then he created The Blaze. And if you remember, when he created The Blaze, he was basically running it. And then the business was not working as he wished it would work. And then they had to do massive overhaul of The Blaze. They brought in all of these people. Wow. Now it's highly profitable, but he doesn't do much of the running of The Blaze. He is the Glenn Beck that we know on camera. I'm not saying he has nothing to do with the decisions. I'm sure he sits around with some basic conversations around the direction or the voice.
Dennis doesn't run PragerU, right?
So that's the perfect example. It's like, would Dennis Prager, would his time best be spent building a network? Like, probably not. Probably not. So I think you have to figure out what's in your DNA, right? Like, for you, building an organization was in your DNA, and then that works. For me, it was a little bit of both, but I don't do day-to-day with Rumble anymore, and I wouldn't want to. I guide them. I take calls with them. How can we deal with a free speech issue? How can we deal with onboarding a certain creator? What are our limits? Things like that. I do that stuff with them, but I don't want to run a company like that. I run my production company, and I have my employees, and it's nice, and it's small, and it's tight, and it's perfect, and
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and when we talk about being on the offense, right, it means building our own networks, right? Why should the left be the only ones with 20 different networks and nothing on the conservative side? And so, I hope that the thing that people will take away from this conversation is that, like many other things in life, sometimes one route is good for one and another route is good for another. And it doesn't mean that, especially young personalities that are looking to get into the game and looking to build an audience, having places like The Blaze, like PragerU, like the Daily Wire is a great stepping stone. I mean, why not utilize those and having this kind of mental state thinking that, oh, well, I got to be independent and nobody can control me. First of all, that never happens, right? Even if you're on Rumble, right?
Right. Independence is fraught with all sorts of things, so you got to be careful about that. By the way, it may just turn out that for Crowder personally, that the independent route it's just better within what he wants to do. He wants to run his operation.
Right. Or Tim Pool, it works out for Tim Pool, right?
Right. Tim has built a freaking unbelievable operation. Like he was this kid with a camera when I first met him. That's all he had. I don't think he had $20, and he's become not only unbelievably wealthy, but he's become hugely influential and I think doing a lot of amazing stuff. So Crowder's road may just be better. But as I said, Jordan is doing incredible things at the Daily Wire now, and he could not have done that alone. So that's why everybody's pressure points and where they want to spend their energy and all that, it's different for everybody.
I agree. It's all about freedom, right? People should choose.
Have I said anything about Florida in the last 5 minutes? Because Florida is just wonderful.
Time to end.
You want to come visit me in Florida? You can
let's
babysit
go.
the kids.
Let's go right now. Let's go.
Let's do it.
Thanks for coming on.